Hello, boys and girls. We're going to be looking at obstacle bishops today. Now you're getting to a more advanced level when you learn to win with obstacle bishops, because they do have a drawish reputation. I have black here against Stockfish level 6 computer, which is really about 2100 USCF rated, approximately, after playing it hundreds and hundreds of games. No, it's a tactical monster, but endgame is pretty weak. Let's see what happened here. Sicilian, my favorite, starts out as no Kelly, ends up being a Paulsen. Now the Paulsen is an opening that Fischer played in the last game with Spassky in their famous 1972 match. And it's still a very decent opening, which is played at the highest levels. So far, white has played the opening accurately. Now I can either play knight d7 or b5. So far, both sides have played correctly. Now I should really come in knight c5, you know. And then that would either compel bishop c5 or knight g3. And in either case, black is standing very well, so knight c5 is the best here. g6, now that's total exclam. Now I'm in a little bit of trouble because my strong b5 pawn is gone. Now I'm trying to hang on to the pawn. Now all these exchanges actually favor black, because this bishop here does not have really anything good to bite on. This formation is very hard to attack with that particular colored bishop. Now that's double-edged, because although you're developing the pieces, you're isolating this pawn. So now the pawn on e5 gives me a big target, which is, it's very hard to defend this pawn once I attack it. Now I could just simply take the pawn, but I decided to focus in on this pawn, the e pawn. Now I'm really going for the pawn. I really want that pawn. Now we get kind of some little complications. I decided I wanted to get a very important pawn and to get my 4-2 pawn majority going. Now he's got a little queenside pressure, but I still think black is slightly better. The problem is this pawn is actually going to be very vulnerable. This pawn down here, which is a very important pawn. But I'm going to just go right after the pawn. Now I could take and then play rook a7, and white is clearly in trouble. But I decided to allow obstacle bishops here. This is a very favorable trade for black here. Now you're probably wondering, what am I doing going for these obstacle bishops now? Notice that I've set a trap. If the computer takes the pawn, I have rook to b1, and that wins. So we don't want to take the pawn, and I don't want to trade rooks here. I still could not figure out what the computer was up to, but it wants to play rook b7, and the obstacle bishop ending is going to be very drawish. So I decided, now that really surprised me. I really didn't know what to do. The correct thing is not to overreact to g4. I should just push e4. e4 is the correct move. And then I have a very nice central mass. But the move that I played kind of breaks up my nice pawn center. So now the computer is trading rooks. I still thought this was an easy win, but it turns out to be very kind of a draw. Now I still thought I was winning, but in fact it's still kind of difficult. Now this is good because notice that all my pawns are on the light squares. Now that's a good move, trying to prevent h5, you know. The computer recommends g5 here, but I disagree. I think that's just bad to put the pawns on the dark squares. Now this forces his king back. Now I have this target on h2 now, which I'm going to go after. See, black has a significant advantage because his pawn here is isolated and very difficult to defend. Now, I think black should win this, but I really blew it. I really misplayed it at this point. Now bishop d6 is correct. Now watch what I do though. Total lemon, because the king and the bishop now interfere with each other. I need to have the bishop back guarding against the pawn queening, and now I'm forced to step in front of the bishop. Notice that this bishop is completely locked in now, so white has all kinds of drawing chances. Whoops, going too fast, sorry guys. Okay, so here I probably should play g5, but anyway. See, the problem is this bishop e8 is annoying. It's going to win the e-pawn when my king retreats. So I think it's really a draw at this point. I wanted to try to hang on. Now, I'm trying to get my bishop positioned. Exclam, king f6. Now I realize he can force the win of the e-pawn. This is a draw because, you know, anytime he wants, he can sacrifice the bishop for the pawn. And now this h-pawn and the bishop cannot drive the king out of the corner once these two pawns, e3 and c5, are exchanged. So that's always, you know, a drawing resource. So now I'm giving up the e-pawn, and this is just a draw at this point. Now, bishop takes pawn is the correct move, and then it's just a draw. After I take the bishop, his king should be heading back into this corner, and, you know, this is just drawn. But see, the computer still doesn't see the correct idea. You know, I'm just kind of fooling around. Anytime white wants, he can get a draw with bishop takes pawn. But now I'm playing for a win. Now bishop takes pawn, king takes bishop, and we have a g-pawn. And it's a completely different story, folks. So now I've actually got some winning chances now. The rule that you want to follow in these opposite-colored bishops ending is once two connected pass pawns reach this 4th or 5th rank, they're becoming very dangerous. So there are some serious winning chances for black at this point. Now I'm trying to come in with a king, and this is very dangerous for white. He's got to get the king into the corner. If the king remains outside of this area, it's over. So to my mind, the only move is king f1. And at this point, the computer only has me ahead by 0.3. So I think that now that it's winning, look, point up 59. See, the problem is he has no defense against g3, h4, h3. And once he sacrifices, I'm left with a g-pawn, which is winning. So it's actually lost at this point. And this is how the game ended. There's no way to stop me from coming in here. There's no way to stop g2. So the rest is technique, folks. And this is how we finished. how come I didn't take the bishop? Because I don't want stalemate. See, he's got to, always move the bishop around. Now for you advanced players, you can end the video. But for you beginners, it's good to see how I drive the king into the corner. Now I've just got to bring the bishop around. And now it's over. Mate. Thanks for watching, folks.